Thank you for having me here today. In terms of actually like the regulator's role in enabling partnerships, what is required in general, especially in a heavily regulated segment like financial services, is a very clear framework of what people can operate in and what people cannot operate in. So in that context, like there are two sets of guidelines which have come. There is a co-lending guidelines, and then there is a FLDG, which has come about as well. So in our point of view, we do believe that, like this clarification which has come in terms of like nurturing co-lending, or in terms of FLDG guidelines, or even the digital lending guidelines which have come up specifically, are actually very clarificatory and very important for the overall industry to know when to the framework within which they function. Right. So I think like it is a good step. It's a step in the right direction. It came at a point of time when there was like a lot of scale up, etc., and some companies had to scale down what they were doing in that kind of a context. But that's okay. Many of these kind of things actually like happen as resets. So I think like it is important for us to note that there is a clearer ecosystem in which we function, and therefore that's always enabling. And in that kind of a context, that like this is a good move. As you think about India, and if you think about like the way markets have evolved, there is a tremendous change which has happened over the last 5 years as such. I'll give you an example. Like we'd gone to one of our portfolio recent investments is a company called Sarvagram. They actually like service rural middle class people. Right? And as we went on a field visit to Sarvagram's customers, we were struck by many things. One of the customers is a Kirana store, right? Like a local grocer. He's on the highway, right? And he says 50% of my customers are guys who drive through on the highway, and they want to pay using the UPI. So if you look at it, 50% of his payments comes through that UPI device, right? Like, so I wouldn't have expected it, right? Like, but it is true. And it's happened because it's been made easy as well. Like, like getting that QR code has been like fairly easy for him. So that what does that do is not only actually like help us, what it helps Sarvagram do actually is to figure out what is this guy's income, right? So 50% of your income is traceable because it is digital and it is going into a bank account. UPI transactions go to a bank account. So it's made use of his bank account. It's actually showing a clear income trail. Because money is in his bank account, he's not now going and like taking it out, but he's also using UPI to pay people as such. Right? So the whole system of both like, money coming in and money going out is now getting digitized. It was an interesting, this was one example. At the other extreme is a dairy farmer, right? And you would think again, like, like that people like that wouldn't be using too many smartphones and so on and so forth. But the dairy farmer gets an SMS every day. As he goes to pour milk at the local center, at the collection center, he gets an SMS from there. This is the milk that you poured. This is the SNF, whatever thing that they measure out there. And this is the pricing, right? 10 liters of milk, and this is the pricing. So they tell him that this is how much we owe you from today. And at the end of the payment cycle, which could be 7 days, it could be 15 days, they actually like send the money into his bank account. Now, here is another example. So this guy has a tally of like what he needs to be paid. It gets paid into his bank account, and he's actually like using his bank account. And again, like he's also has a traceable income as such. So the rural India that we thought of like a few years ago as this poor farmer, etc., is actually like disappearing. Well, farmers might be poor. I'm sorry, I'm not making that kind of a statement. What I am saying is that they are actually like quickly coming up the curve in terms of what they are adopting in the ecosystem. And because of that, there is actually like increasingly available data about the rural masses. So therefore, like it becomes easy for many people to underwrite them as such. So it was a very eye-opening exercise that I think we should mention. PhonePe, for example, says like much of its traffic comes from tier 2, tier 3 towns. And this is actually like, like I think like irrespective of income segments, people have started using their phones for multiple things. And in that kind of a context, this is a rapidly expanding market. So, like it will quickly catch up is our thesis. See, there are different kinds of contexts in which tech is used, right? Like if you think about like, like are people applying for a loan on their phone, right? And from a consumer perspective, the answer might be yes, the answer might be no, right? Like how many loan applications come through your app by itself is like, or a tech interface is urban skewed, most probably, right? That does not mean that rural people do not use it. They know that there is an offer available. What they are not sure yet is like the next level, like of how does this transaction happen as such. So tech needs to be at the front end, which is the app or the interface, which is available to me easily. And tech needs to be at the back end, which says like, like here's a loan which is going to be available to you within a finite period of time. If it is a small loan, it can be available within the next 15 minutes or maybe within the next 4 hours. If it is a large loan, it will take a day or two, right? Or if it is a larger, like for example, housing loans, it might take more time because your documents need to be verified. But what actually like tech enablement at the back end means is actually like to ensure that the entire data flow and the workflows are very clear. And therefore, like, you're able to provide a service to a customer within a finite amount of time. So that's what tech enablement at the back end means. And front end means, like the customer needs to use it in that kind of a context. The customer usage we will need to get addressed as, like trust in the financial system gets built. So it might not, I don't think like, like people will start by saying, I want to apply here, apply by myself, till they've experienced you as an institution. But the second time that they're applying for a loan with the same company, they'll probably use the app, right? So if we don't have to always start with the customer interface, but you do need to start with your service levels. I think like somebody in the panel mentioned, like underserved and poorly served. You address that part of it. Like for the service level to be very good, you require technology at the back end and ensure that your workflows and processes are very well defined. And that is something that we are seeing increasing adoption of. For example, banks spend quite a bit on technology, right? They might not spend as much as on their app interface, but they spend a lot in terms of the technology that, like runs their operations as such. So do NBFCs, so do fintechs. So in that kind of a context, there's a lot of tech enablement which is happening in the ecosystem.